Hello everyone, Rob Gardner at DFS Today on Twitter. You can also reach our team at Fantasy Degens on Twitter. And I'm here to give you a primer on Golf DFS. If you've never played Golf DFS before, it's actually a lot of fun, and it's a sport that you can get into pretty quickly and have some really incredible sweats on the weekends. To give you a brief rundown of how Golf DFS works, basically you're going to pick between 6 and 8 golfers depending on the site. 6 on DraftKings, 7 on Fantasy Draft, and 8 on FanDuel, with your goal being to try and get all of your golfers through to the weekend. The way the tournaments play out, golfers play a round of golf on Thursday, a round of golf on Friday, and then half the field is cut approximately, leaving only half the field to play on Saturday and Sunday. If your golfers make it through the cut and get to play on the weekend, you're at a huge advantage because those golfers continue to rack up fantasy points for their pars and birdies and eagles, where the players that have cut are no longer playing and can no longer accrue points. So the goal is to get all of your golfers through to the weekend, and that's where the sweat begins. So without further ado, let me take you into our dashboard, and let me give you a rundown of how to play fantasy golf. Our core 4 stats are as follows. First, we have our course history stat. Now, this stat has a lot of stuff that goes into the algorithm. It looks at recent performance in this tournament. It looks at how high they score in the tournament. And it looks at recency bias. So, how does that break down for you? A couple ways. First of all, if a guy's only 6 for 9 here, but all of his missed cuts were 6 to 9 years ago, and we're not recently, it's not going to have a huge impact on his score. Likewise, if somebody finished in the top 15 last year, but had 6 missed cuts prior to that, that's also not going to overweigh in the score. The way the course history is looking is it's looking for players that have been consistent and have been dominant. The more consistent you've been, the more dominant you've been, and the more effective you've been recently, the higher this score goes. I find course history to be one of the better metrics when it comes to fantasy golf, and it's one of the top fantasy golf metrics that I personally look at. Sometimes you will find players who have not been playing well and don't necessarily have great Vegas stats, but they've crushed this course in the past, and you find that they come out and they put out an incredible performance that not a lot of people are on. So course history is a huge stat for me. The second stat is what we call recent form. This has a similar calculation, but it looks at the last 6 tournaments of the tour for this particular golfer, and it tells you exactly how well they're playing coming into this event. Again, if they haven't played very many events, it's going to factor in, sample size factors in, and how they played most recently has a bigger impact than when they played 6 weeks ago. But the idea is to know how well these players have been playing leading into this situation. A perfect example is Camilo Villegas here. He has a really high course history, but a really low form. This means he's not playing well, but because he has a really strong history, we can still look at him as a play because his history might be more predominant than how he's been playing recently. The third stat that we look at is called our course statistics. What this does is we take the course and we look at the stats that have been most corollary to wins for that course. Basically, we look at past winners, we look at past top 10s, and we say, which stats have these guys been dominant in? And that gives us an idea of a stat profile that a golfer needs in order to be successful on this course. And then, completely independent of how well they've played here in the past or how well they've played recently, we rate these golfers based on how they rank in these stats in the tour. This gives you an idea of how good they do with the tools they need in order to be successful in this course. Again, sometimes you're going to run into golfers who maybe have not had good history here, but they've got the stats to back up that they should be successful here. And it may be that they just need another couple tries to be successful here. Course stats can be one of those tools that can decipher between guys who are truly bad at a course or guys who have just been unlucky or maybe came in not playing at their best. The fourth and final stat is our made cut stat. This takes a blend of different Vegas odds across multiple Vegas books to give us an idea of how likely a player is to make the cut. The higher the rating is, the more likely and the more confident you can be that that player is going to make the cut. And this allows us to kind of get a good idea of, again, how Vegas approaches this particular golfer. These 4 stats blend to give us our overall score. Our overall score allows us to kind of get an overall glimpse of exactly how we feel about the field. And it's a great filter to start with when you're looking to build your rosters. As you can see when this comes up, our top play of the slate is Phil Mickelson. He's had absolutely dominant course history in the past. He comes in playing extremely well. He's got the stats to play well on this course, and Vegas loves him. As such, he gets the highest blend overall, and it's a no-brainer, and that's why for this particular week I decided to play him at a full 80%. I also marked him as a star tag and as a value tag because even though he is high-priced, he's good value over the 11 and 12K golfers on the slate compared to the younger golfers. Even if you just have the beginner package and you have these 4 stats and the overall stat, you should have enough to decide which golfers you like and which golfers you don't like for a particular slate. By going through and looking at the color coding, you can get a good feel for the golfers that are safer and the golfers that are riskier. To help you with that, we do have our risk rating here on the bottom left. We rate this all the way from minimal risk up to extreme risk, giving you ideas of how risky a play is for a particular situation. Just because a play is risky doesn't mean he's not a good play for a tournament play. For example, we look at if we come down here and look at one of these high-risk plays like Wee Kim. Here's a guy who hasn't been playing well, but he does have good stats to back up the course, and he's played decently well here in the past. He comes in at high risk, so you have to know that he is a guy that could certainly bust or not make the cut. His make-cut rating is good but not great, so Vegas believes that there is some chance he can get there. And so for the $6,400 price tag on DraftKings, you can look at justifying taking a risk on him in a tournament or two, but knowing that he comes high risk. On the flip side, you also have extremely low-risk plays. These will tend to be your cash plays and people that you can feel safe about going. They're going to be much higher on the made-cut scale, and they're going to be people that Vegas believe and trust in, and they're going to be people that you can play safe with. But remember that with some safe plays also comes and limits upside. So occasionally you will run into plays that are just cash plays and not GPP plays because while they're safe to make the cut, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have the upside to really win and dominate a tournament. Ideally, to win one of the big field tournaments, you really need to get 5 or 6 golfers inside the top 20 or at least 5 golfers inside the top 15. And as such, you want guys that can finish towards the top and have confidence to get there. In addition to our 4 stats and our overall score, we do have an expert ranking for our VIP members. This is a great way, again, to see what our personal take is on the field. Even though stats are important, stats don't always tell the entire story because salary is an impact. Just because a guy has the 9th highest profile, if he's super cheap, he gets a huge bump in terms of how valuable he is. Take a look at a guy like Ian Poirier here. He's a guy that's only $7,600 on DraftKings, $7,100 on FanDuel, only $15,000 on Fantasy Draft, so he's mid-tier value. Yet he's got the stats of a guy that is pretty high up on the totem pole. He's got an 85 for his course history, comes in phenomenal form, solid stats, and Vegas loves him to make the cut. As such, even though his numbers aren't quite as high as Adam Scott, our expert ratings have him ranked higher because of the way the salary factors in. We also have another great tool in our VIP kit called our exposure. This is where we set exposure rates that we would approach the slate with if we were playing a wide range of rosters to give you a base for where to start. By clicking the Match Expert Exposure Rating, you can actually apply these exposures if you're a VIP member to your exposure set and have a base starting point for how you build your rosters out. Speaking of the Max Expert Exposure, let me take a minute to take you through the filters here at the top. In the top left, we've got our sort values. You can sort this by overall. You can sort it by risk to find the lowest risk up to the highest risk. You can sort by our Vibe popularity ratings that will tell you how popular these players are expected to be for the slate. Or you can sort by each of the 4 stats that we have as our key stats. In addition, if you want a value score, you can actually sort by value for overall, value for risk, Vibe, or our 4 stats. And what this will do is it will factor in the salary for DraftKings, FanDuel, or Fantasy Draft and give you the best value plays. This is the closest thing to an optimizer and allows you to get a feel for what plays are good based on the salary experience. Up here on the right, we also have the ability to sort by salary for any of the 3 sites. You can sort by your exposure, you can sort by the expert rating, or you can sort by our blender score. Our blender score is another very, very cool tool of our VIP level, and let's take a brief look at it here. I'm going to go ahead and sort by blender now, just so we can get the blender ratings in place. But I'm going to go up here to our PGA menu here, and I'm going to go to the PGA blender. Now what this does is this allows you to decide a unique overall score in the blender category, weighed how you want to weigh each of the 4 stats. This is important because each week is a little bit different in DFS, and there are definitely situations where you may want to weigh one stat more than another. Or perhaps you just find yourself to be a strong believer in a particular stat over others, and you want to weigh heavily in that score. Right now you can see the way I have mine set up. I've got my course history at 100%, my recent form at 0%, my course stats at 100%, and my made cut at 100%. This would effectively give me an overall blender rating that did not factor recent form in any way, shape, or form. As you set these numbers, random ratings will show up down here just so you can get an idea of how it would display as an overall score and how it would display as a blender score to give you an opportunity to kind of tool this in exactly how you want. Let's say there was a particular week where we were playing on a course where several of the holes had been changed from the previous year. You may decide that because of that you want to factor course history in less because the course has changed and altered dramatically from previous years. As such, you might want to focus more on form, stats, and the made cut value. By setting history to 50%, form, stats, and made cut, now you have a blender score that it fits exactly with what you're trying to do for this particular week. Say, for example, maybe you have a week where there is no course history. You could set this all the way down to 0, even bring recent form down to 50%, made cut down to like 80%, and effectively make the course statistics the strongest stat when it comes to the stat blender, because you really need people that profile the course well. By setting these ratings, again, it will pull up new numbers. You can kind of see exactly how it affects these golfers and just take a look at these particular golfers and say, would I feel good about how this rates out overall? Once you've got your stats exactly how you feel, you can come back into the dashboard and it will calculate new blender scores for all 154 golfers using your particular value. So we can see based on what we set up from the top, if this is the way we were going to go, Molinari would now become our best play, Phil Mickelson would be second, Adam Scott, and it would go on down from there. You can see Graham McDowell with our particular blender setup would actually come way up and be our 4th highest rated golfer, where it was not super rated high. But again, this is because course history would no longer be into play, and that's what's been bringing his overall score down. The blender tool is really effective, and it's a great way to really hone in and nail your golf ratings exactly how you want to dial them in. But we do recommend that you don't use that until you become a little bit more experienced with golf. If you are experienced with golf, then this is a great place to come in and really flex your muscles and build your stats exactly how you want. Bottom line is, when you come to golf, you want to try and find 6 golfers that you're going to be confident that makes the cut and confident they can compete in the next weekend. We believe our stat blend here will allow you to very quickly decide how much risk you want to take on and put in golfers that you feel safe about. As always, with all of our dash tools, we have the plays separated as picks and fades, so a big percentage of the field is already put into the fade category, which allows you to decide that you don't need to look at these players. But anytime you should want to look at them, you can click the up arrow to move the play into the play, and likewise, you can remove players by clicking the X to remove them to the fade. This is kind of a brief overview of how to play fantasy golf. If you have any specific questions, you can always reach out to us on Twitter at DFS Today personally, or at Fantasy DGens on the group tweet. And if you're one of our subscribers at any level, if you're a subscriber at the beginner, professional, or VIP levels, then you get access to our exclusive Team Slack chat, our great chat module. We talk about picks, we talk about who we like. It's a great community way to interact, and you can get lots of help there from both team and regular members who have already had success in golf. That's it for me this week. Thanks for chiming out. Please come out and check out our golf tools. They are great and they are a lot of fun, and I believe that golf is one of the better DFS sports that you should participate in. That's it for me, Rob Gardner. Have a great day.